There might be a tropical storm kind of settling over some of us here, but as long as we've got an internet connection and we can talk college football with you, I would like to say on a bright and early Monday morning / afternoon here at the Voice of College Football. But yes, tropical depression conditions here in Connecticut, but we are good to go to talk college football with all of you for the next several minutes. We've got Andrew Heddersley on the line from Gig'em 247 Sports to break down Texas A&M football. ESPN has released its top 100 players in the nation. We're going to run that down and possibly open up the phone lines as well if we've got feedback from all of you talking college football. Want to let everyone know that's on the line right now or is going to be joining us in just a few minutes on the Rewatch Squad. That at 7 o'clock tonight, 7 Eastern tonight, we're doing a Clemson, Georgia preview, live preview with all of our media contacts from both the Georgia and Clemson side. So, of course, Clemson, Georgia is huge, and we wanted to strike it from a live perspective and get all of your comments and questions. So bring them tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time, Clemson, Georgia, live preview. Now we talk Gig'em. Andrew, how are we doing today?
Good. Hope everybody's doing okay up in the Northeast. I've heard quite a bit about how that tropical storm is going, so hope everybody's okay up there. And yeah, ready to get on and talk some Texas A&M.
Well, it's one of those situations where just to sit here in my house, it doesn't seem too threatening or violent, but it's one of those things where it went from hurricane and they upped it all the way to a Category 1, and you've got some experience with that, I'm sure, down in Texas, down to a tropical depression. But the thing is, so you take out the threat of the high winds and tree damage and falling trees and all those sorts of outages, but it's just like raining constantly. So the flooding could be an issue at some point.
Yeah, I was curious because I'm a big golf guy, and I know they've got the Northern Trust Open up there in New Jersey and postponed it until today. So I was curious how that even is going to happen with all the rain up there.
Absolutely. We shall see. Get it cleared out for the weekend, hopefully for what is the final weekend of, I don't want to say it in a negative way, freedom, but
we do.
The rest of us are we're going to be locked down with college football. Certainly, I know that you've got your work cut out for you just starting this weekend as well. So Saturday, even you've got a lot of work to do, right?
Yep. Well, Texas high school football starting this week. So we've got Thursday night. We'll be out at Wiley East in Mount Pleasant. Texas A&M's got a commit in hand, and from there, and will actually be the debut of the new head coach, Marcus Gold. Saw them in a scrimmage a couple weeks ago, and I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch, playing with plenty of energy. Friday night, still figuring out the game schedule. I know the big game of the night is Duncanville and Mater Dei. That should have plenty of high stakes. And then Saturday, Longview and Denton Ryan up at the Ford Center, and then we'll be popping across the street to Allen to go see Argyle and Nolan Catholic play. So it'll be a busy and fun weekend. But yeah, we're off and running on Thursday.
Andrew, does Texas high school football still have some of those matchups with other states? I've been out of the high school football loop for a while, for quite some time. But are there still some of those state matchups versus, the All-Stars from one state taking on the All-Stars from another state?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think all eyes on Friday night are going to be on Duncanville and Mater Dei, and that'll be kind of the California-Texas matchup. I know players down here in Texas have been talking about that for a couple weeks now, and honestly, I tried to get a credential 2 weeks ago, and they said they were already full on media credentials. So I'm going to be going somewhere else on Friday night to go see a Texas A&M Target, where hopefully there's not as much media. But yeah, no, it's going to be a crazy, crazy time, and we'll see how they do, because I know there's been a lot of talk all summer about Duncanville and Mater Dei, and it doesn't get any better than that matchup.
Talking Texas A&M football as we do on a regular basis with Andrew Heddersley. Catch his work at Gig'em 247 Sports. You know the brand, you know the quality. Gig'em 247 Sports and Andrew's work and the rest of the staff right there. Also, one of the reasons we've got Andrew on, just want to let everyone know that Andrew is going to be hosting our Texas A&M post-game coverage that you can catch on our SEC channel we have started a Texas A&M channel that's only got about 25 or 35 subscribers. So, of course, we want Andrew to be talking to somebody. So we're going to have those post-game shows also simulcast on our SEC channel with about 13,000 subscribers. So, again, I will be updating everybody on the day's schedule starting next Saturday, September 4th. But we've got a lineup of post-game shows, including Texas A&M and Kent State, following the Aggies, what we expect to be a win. But the Golden Flashes, hey, they've put up a ton of points last year. I know that. Led the nation in offense and points per game, but should be an interesting test for that Aggie defense. But again, our post-game hosted by Andrew, SEC channel, Texas A&M channel. So lock it in right there. And again, I'll be providing updates constantly on where you can find all those post-game shows. All right, Andrew, we're going to put you to work. I guess we'll start down the recruiting trail since you got us started in that route with all the high school games that you're covering. So who are the big targets? What's the latest in terms of Texas A&M?
Well, it's been a busy month actually for Texas A&M, and I think by all fans' accounts, a really good one. They landed a big target, especially here in Texas, in Bryce Anderson, and that recruitment's been fascinating to watch. So he backed off a commitment to LSU in the spring, and at the time kind of looked to be Texas A&M probably for about the month after that. And then Texas took momentum for a couple months. That game really changed on the first weekend of the official visits. Texas A&M knocked it out the park with him. Was kind of able to regain momentum. And just a week after the signing period, or after the dead period went back into place, he announced his commitment to Texas A&M. Then the next Friday, they added another kid, Deion Smoke Bowie out of Georgia, which was a big one too. He's probably one of the best athletes in the 2022 class. Can play either wide receiver or corner, and I think they're going to kind of figure that out when they get to campus. And then I think you'll enjoy this one. Last Wednesday, big news: they landed Theodore Ostrom out of Sweden. Chose Texas A&M over LSU and Ohio State. He's a guy that came over with PPI Recruits, which is kind of an international group, and was really kind of one of the stars of the summer on the camp circuit. Landed offers from Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU, Ohio State, and a ton of others. And he's back in Sweden now, but gives Texas A&M their tight end for the 2023 class already, and that class is off and rolling with 4 4-star recruits now. And he's got a chance to be a really, really good one. He's actually pretty familiar with football, even overseas. He's watched quite a bit on YouTube, and said he picked it up watching Odell Beckham with doing one-handed catches, and that's how he picked up the game of football. So a really talented prospect, but they've got a couple, I think that they would love to add. Barrett Alexander is a 5-star defensive lineman out of Texas. He cut his list recently down to Texas A&M and Georgia. He was really originally a Georgia commit. So those two are really going to battle. And then I know they've got I think the theme that's emerged over the past couple of months for Texas A&M is just the crazy amount of guys that they're in on the defensive line front, from Walter Nolan and Shamar Stewart and Eni White and Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy and Barrett Alexander, and the list kind of goes on with other guys that we'll see how they end up going. But I think the defensive line is going to be one of the stories of this class, with just how many guys they're in on.
Got Andrew Hattersley on the line from Gig'em 247 Sports. Texas A&M opens its season at home against Kent State night game September 4th. And Andrew's going to host our post-game show featuring Texas A&M, of course, on the A&M channel, also the SEC channel. So lock it in there. All right, Andrew, you know that I'm going to ask you about the quarterback competition.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we found out? Anything new? Anything different? Zach Calzada, Haynes King, everybody.
They've kept that one pretty much under wraps. I think when you talk to people and, when you talk to people, around the program and all that, I think everybody continues to kind of expect that Haynes King will be the guy, but they've continued to rotate between the ones of Zach Calzada and Haynes King. And, credit to Zach Calzada. He throws a beautiful ball. He really does. The ball comes out of his hand really, really well. And, in terms of the thing that always gets brought up with Haynes King is the intangibles. That continues to be the story, just the decisions that he makes and his athleticism. We've heard from Jimbo Fisher late last week, and he said he knows in the next couple of weeks, in the week or so coming up is probably when he's going to have to make a decision. He might not tell us who that's going to be, but he's certainly kind of closing in on a decision. And for right now, they're trying to give every guy an opportunity to win the job. And one of his phrases has always been, he'll let the team dictate who the starter will be. Who do they kind of gravitate towards, and in terms of leadership and who they kind of believe in. And we'll see that play out. But yeah, they've kind of continued to rotate them. They both got their shots at the ones and the twos. And from what we know, it's just going to come down to protecting them is what it's going to come down to.
Talking Texas A&M, of course, they open with Kent State September 4th. We've got a post-game show all lined up for every Texas A&M game on the SEC channel and Texas A&M channels. And we got a log jam on the SEC channel, so we're going to work that out. Either we'll have the Texas A&M post-game on the SEC channel as well, or maybe over here on the main channel. But that's why we're going to release a schedule every week that you guys are going to have to track for all these post-game shows that we have lined up. Well, injuries always a bugaboo that jump up most of the time for most teams during the spring and then during fall camp. Anything significant, anything to be concerned about there?
I think they've had some bangs and bruises. Damon Demas is one guy who's kind of coming back from an injury sustained this summer, and seems like he's kind of being worked back into the fold. The good news is, and a guy that's had some bad luck injury wise the past 2 years is Baylor Cupp, former 5-star tight end, who's battled injuries the past 2 years, and they've kind of eased him into action, managed to keep him pretty healthy for the most part this fall camp. So I think they're really trying to keep him in good shape. But no major injuries that we've heard about. It's just been kind of the bumps and bruises of fall camp, and I think that's kind of something they've tried to push people to the limits to see, to kind of build your body into shape, but nothing major really.
So with the backs and the wide receivers set in regards to just a ton of experience and productivity coming back, the quarterback situation, of course, is coming down to the wire. It appears the defense is pretty well set. 2 starters missing on defense, of course, from last year in Brown and Johnson. Were their spots pretty much set in regards to somebody coming in, filling that spot, or are there still battles going on the defensive side?
Yeah, well, Aaron Hansford, has kind of stepped into that Buddy Johnson role, and that's actually a position group that Jimbo Fisher spoke about Friday that he's been pretty happy with. He kind of talked. It's a lot to replace a guy like Buddy Johnson, but Aaron Hansford's kind of stepped into that leadership role, and then behind him, there's a couple other guys that can also fill that second linebacker role of Andre White, Terrion Lee, Chris Russell, Adrian Cooper, and Antonio Doyle, just to name a few. And that's so they're going to have guys rotating in at that second spot, and I think they feel pretty good about that. On the defensive line, they've got Jaden Peavy and McKinley Jackson, I think, in the middle. Darius Jones is another guy that's seen a lot of snaps this year, and then even Shamar Turner's come right onto campus and had a really good fall camp, and I think you'll see him contribute as well this fall.
And of course, Andrew, we started camp with Kenyon Green moving to left tackle as one of the best offensive linemen in the SEC in the country, as well, with 4 spots somewhat up for grabs. Do those seem to be pretty much set, or are they still figuring things out up front?
I think that's a group where you've seen as much rotation as pretty much any group during the fall camp. I mean, trying to keep track of who's kind of got the inside route on that has been interesting to watch, because even guys like Ruben Fothery, who's a freshman and came in this summer, has already started to emerge as well this fall. So is Bryce Foster. And Jimbo Fisher actually talked about Bryce Foster on Friday and said, he's a guy he could see him contributing pretty early this year. But they have totally mixed and matched, and they're just trying to find a combination of 5 guys that they can go with. Luke Matthews is a guy that I think they really hope can contribute this year, and they're trying to keep him healthy as well. He's battled some injuries. Layden Robinson, Kinola Agunbiyi is another guy. Matthew Wyckoff has also taken snaps at center. So that's one thing. The center position has been interesting to watch, because you've had about 4 guys roll through there, and different guys in the 2 deep and all that. And they're really mixing and matching. And Jameer Johnson, of course, the grad transfer from Tennessee as well. And they're really mixing and matching and trying to find a group of 5 guys. But one thing is, even though they're inexperienced, Jimbo Fisher is actually really high on this group, and said the talent level of the group as a whole is pretty good. They just have to find 5 guys that they can go with and kind of build the chemistry.
Andrew, one of the unfortunate kind of approaches and mindsets, I think, most fan bases that root for quality teams, that root for the contending teams have, is that they look past a bunch of teams, and they're wanting to know. And then you've got the groups of fans from other fan bases that they're interested in let's say a Texas A&M is, can you win the West? Can you get to the playoffs? Can you beat Bama? And they're just looking at the Bama game, to a certain extent, the LSU game. And I'm trying to think, who are your out of division games? It's always South Carolina, and this year it is Mizzou. Yeah. So not necessarily something that the average college football fan is too interested in. And I just think this is unfortunate that a lot of people will be like, okay, let's get past Kent State and Colorado. Maybe the Colorado game draws a little bit of interest from some people because it's in an NFL stadium and it's on the road and it's just kind of different. But then New Mexico, then Arkansas, Mississippi State, then Alabama. And obviously everybody's wanting to know, can Texas A&M beat Alabama? And I just think it kind of drain some of the joy out of college football. So folks, I would just, this is just my own suggestion. Just, we get so little of college football. It's only 12 games. Just enjoy them as they come. Just let's the Kent State games come in, that for as good as Texas A&M is, and for as much as Kent State is a MAC opponent, and probably, I don't know, I haven't seen the line on the game. I'm going to guess it's like 25 points. Just enjoy the game. Just enjoy the competition week to week against whatever the opponent is. And it's a fairly interesting one in Kent State. I don't know that you've had any kind of chance to look at Kent State, but they have a nice little program started there in the MAC.
Yeah, it is going to be an interesting game to watch. And I think, just given it's the first game, there's been countdowns on our board for quite a few weeks now, even just how many days. And so I think everybody's just ready for some semblance of football to be here. And you're right. I mean, I don't think it's a super challenging non-conference schedule. I think the Arkansas game is going to be interesting because Arkansas always plays them tough. And then I do think that Missouri game could be interesting because it comes right after Alabama. So it's kind of in an interesting time spot. And then the other one, I'd mentioned the back half of the schedule is kind of interesting because you've got Ole Miss too. And Ole Miss, I think, is going to really scare some people this year. They just score a ton of points, and that's going to put pressure on folks. And then you obviously close out the year with the Alabama game, with the LSU game, should I say. And, I think just in terms of recruiting battles, that's going to be a huge game, just from a recruiting standpoint, and those two schools kind of battling each other and for bragging rights and all that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the first 5 games of the year probably won't catch many people's attention when it comes to the A&M schedule. But Kent State is an interesting opponent to start out with.
Then again, a trip to Colorado to take on the Buffs in the Denver Broncos NFL Stadium, whatever they're calling that these days.
Yeah.
Empower Field.
Yeah, I've lost track at this point.
I think just about everybody except for stadium nerds have lost track of these NFL stadium names. So wherever they've gravitated to the most money in terms of an investor is what they get named these days. All right, got Andrew Hattersley on here to talk Texas A&M football, and it's funny because when people comment to me about Texas A&M, we get the comments on the live chat. People are pretty well split between, okay, this team's ready to take the next step. They showed us that last year. They're figuring things out. They're taking their aim at Alabama. Then you got the folks that are basically in the camp of this is a really good team, but this is a bad time to be switching quarterbacks, losing an experienced quarterback. You're going to have an inexperienced guy. And even though Bryce Young for Alabama is inexperienced himself, having only thrown a handful of passes last year, that a lot of people just don't see that transition coming this year and seeing Texas A&M being able to take a legitimate shot at Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. So much is going to be figured out, by week 5, and we'll have a better situation because we just haven't seen them play, right? Like it's so hard to figure out. I think there's a lot of belief in what they can accomplish and what they can do, and obviously, I think A&M's defense is going to keep them in a ton of games this year. Just that the depth and talent that they've got on that side of the ball is going to give them a lot of advantages. But whether they can compete with Alabama or not, I think that first SEC game will be kind of interesting to watch too, and against Arkansas. And I think there's people on our message board who have said it, and other experts have said it as well. If you're not dominating that sort of game against Arkansas, well, then you are going to, that's going to bring up questions about Alabama as well and whether you're ready to play them. But it is an interesting question. I think it's that offensive line has got 5 games to kind of build chemistry and get together. And I do think, though, that people tend to forget that sometimes, the Jalen Weidermeiers and Isaiah Spillers and Devon Achains and Anias Smiths and even Caleb Chapman coming back, what kind of lift that's going to give to the offense. I don't think everything's going to be on the quarterback's shoulders. And, I think they're going to make the game. They're going to, kind of slow the game down and try to rely on that running game. And, whether that'll work when you get into a shootout with Alabama or not is kind of a question to be seen. But they're really going to rely on that running game, and they've got a ton of good options to go to there. And they're going to rely on those strengths and see how that kind of goes, and maybe open up the play action passing game.
We were having that conversation about experience at quarterback a few months ago during a call-in show, and it just got me to wondering. And I thought, you know what? Wait a minute. Yes, experience is extremely important. Yes. Do you want experience at any position, especially quarterback? Yes, obviously. Game reps against live bullets, quality competition. Anybody that takes in learning and can develop is obviously going to be a better player the more experience they get. Sure, you want experience, but at the same time, again, we were having this conversation a few months ago, and I said, well, wait a minute a second. And I start thinking through the national championship games. And I went through, Andrew, the last 8 national championship games. So that's 16 teams that advanced to the national championship game. Out of those 16, 8 of them had starting quarterbacks who had basically no experience going into that season. 8 of the 16, no experience going into that season.
Yeah, and I think you build up experience on once you get maybe 4 or 5 games in, you've seen some things, and you start to build some comfort and settle in, and especially for guys like Haynes King and Zach Calzada. The other point I would make too, on Zach King, on Haynes King, is they're going up against probably a pretty darn good defense in practice, and that's going to test them and I think that's going to make you grow up a lot quicker. Just going up against that defense every single day. You're not going to face a defense like that every single time you go out with that much experience and veteran leadership and guys on the front that are generating pressure. And then just in terms of with Haynes King being able to handle the spotlight, another good point that gets brought up quite often with him is he had to lead. I mean, he led a Longview team that had not won a state championship in a very, very long time here in Texas to a state championship. And not only did he do that, he had to deal with a lot of pressure during his time in high school, probably more pressure than a lot of high school quarterbacks have to deal with, to be honest with you. I remember a conversation that we had at the beginning of his senior year, and I asked him if, the pressure was kind of off having your commitment out the way, and he said, well, not really. He said, and he kind of pointed to the crowd and said, I play in front of one of the, in front of a legendary coach that happens to be my dad. So he's kind of got the pressure of that and the pressure of, playing in front of a packed stadium every single night. He's kind of been in the spotlight for a while now and had to learn how to deal with that and learn how to lead and get guys going. And so from that perspective, I think he's pretty comfortable in a big stage because, he's been on one of the biggest stages in high school football in Texas. And I think that's prepared him well if he is the guy. And but yeah, you're right. I mean, once you get 4 or 5 games into the year, I think you start to settle in and, it's just about experiencing different things. He's going to see things in the Alabama game that he's never experienced before. And it's how quickly do you learn? How quickly do you rebound? And, can you game plan around certain stuff to keep him out of bad situations? That if we're talking specifically about the LSU and the Alabama game and, kind of the trap game at Missouri, the running game is going to be huge to keep them in, good yardage situations. And that's probably something when you've got a first-year quarterback, you have to have a good run game to keep them in good situations. Because if they're in 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12 against Alabama, they're going to be in trouble that week. So, if they can stay in 3rd and 4s and 3rd and 5s and 3rd and 3s. And that was also something they did really well last year. They kind of went under the radar when they had one of the nation's best 3rd down offenses. They were in manageable 3rd down situations.
Those are all great points. And just to extend on one of those points, yeah, if you're in a situation with a program and a team like we're talking about national championship contenders. So your team is so good that as long as you don't mess things up, you have that buffer of just managing the game, doing the right things, and being able to do that. Sorry about that. And basically, manage the game, don't mess it up, and your team's probably going to be good enough to win all of its games or maybe lose one, but you're going to grow and mature, and you're going to be a different player at the end of the year when it's time to win championship impacting games in November into December than you were in September, number one. Number two, that basically, I just think that in this era of these Elite 11 camps and all the prep work that these quarterbacks in particular do, but all these players, and especially in the passing game, that they are so much more developed physically and mentally in the reps that they get with all these, again, this elite type of instruction that they get going into college football, that they're just so much more prepared and they've received so many reps at an elite level against elite competition with elite coaching than they were decades ago.
Yeah, and I think our beat writer on the site, Jeff Tarpley, had a great point a couple of days ago when talking about who's going to win the quarterback job and all that. And one of his points was it's going to go to the guy who makes the least amount of mistakes because that's kind of what you're relying on as a guy that's not going to turn the ball over, not going to put you in bad situations. And I thought he was 100% correct on that. They're not looking for a guy who's going to go out there and throw for 500 yards per game, but if they can protect the ball, make good decisions, not turn it over, not put their defense in bad spots, that's the guy that's going to end up winning the job. And to your second point, it's interesting you mentioned that about just how much more prepared they are, because before the year, Jimbo Fisher, or a couple of weeks ago, Jimbo Fisher was actually over at coaching school down here in Texas, talking to Texas high school football coaches. And he just talked about how much more prepared kids are coming into college nowadays from just a holistic standpoint. Because to his point, they are required to do so much more in high school right now. They've got so much media focus on them, following their recruitments, following what they're doing in high school. So they're having to do a lot of interviews. They're having to, engage with the media, learn the plays, go to different camps, go to 7-on-7, go to Elite 11. And so they, especially at the quarterback position, come in much more mature. And I think that's a fair point. Is they just come in, and you're not just seeing it at A&M. You're seeing it at places like LSU. If you've heard the buzz coming out of LSU, Garrett Nussmeier's come right in, and he's pretty much grabbed hold of that number 2 spot at the quarterback position, and they've raved about him. And I think you've seen it at other places as well. JJ McCarthy in Michigan, I think they'd be very happy with him. So guys are just coming in a lot more ready to play at this point.
Absolutely. Once again, Andrew Hattersley, Gig'em 247 Sports. So head on over there. Check out Andrew and the rest of the staff there at Gig'em 247. Yeah. It's September 4th is the opener with Texas A&M taking on Kent State.
Yeah, got a lot going on. Got a lot happening over the next 2 weeks. Even while we've been on the show, I just had another credential approval come in. So yeah, nice. it's all kind of coming together. We'll for sure be out at Wiley East and Mount Pleasant on Thursday night now.
So one more time, everybody. Andrew's going to be hosting our post-game coverage of Texas A&M football, starting with the Kent State game the night of September 4th. I'll get you a full schedule of post-game shows to know exactly, but typically right around the end of the game, Andrew's going to be hosting Texas A&M on the Texas A&M channel and on the SEC channel. So, Andrew, appreciate you being on, as always, to break down the Aggies, and appreciate you taking on this post-game show.
We're nearly there. Feels like we're close at this point. So thanks for having me on, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Andrew, have a great day.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right. Yeah, once again, Aggies post-game coverage every week after the Texas A&M game, hosted by Andrew. And it was Andrew and I who were working on some testing actually at the start of this show, and we'll have to do some more on Thursday just to make sure all of our post-game show hosts are lined up. And yes, my phone should be on vibrate, but yeah, that's kind of the least of my concerns, basically. There's like 48 things to do at once. Yeah, that's probably not going to be remembered. So just everyone will have to deal with that. All right, I'm going to go through the live chat. I was going to set up the call-in line, but looks as though we don't have too many online at all. So that would be a waste of burning up the phone lines. Dominic. Basically, Dominic, hey, Mark, hate to get off topic. How do you like my Sonic the Hedgehog character? That's a good-looking character there. Cute. Very nice. I like the selection of bright colors, Dominic. I don't know what that thing is, but looks a little freaky, but very good. That would be me. Bo Weevil's here. The Rod Farva's here. Sam, good to see you. Trying to think where we had the first question pop up. There it is from Michael. Michael asking, how many top 25 teams do you think will lose in week 1? Well, Miami goes down. That's one. UCLA, LSU, I think that's a possibility of an upset at the Rose Bowl. A slight upset. It's only a 3 to 4 point spread. Top 25 teams. We've got an Iowa-Indiana matchup, so somebody's going to lose that game. We've got Penn State and Wisconsin. So they're both ranked in the top 25. Somebody's going to lose that game. So you got two top 25 teams that have to lose. The Big Ten's really putting their best teams on the line in week 1, Indiana, Iowa, and Penn State, Wisconsin. Any other top 25 teams could lose. Notre Dame's going to have a test at Florida State, possibly. And, of course, my predictions are on Patreon. So please sign up on Patreon. Go over to Patreon. Join our Voice of College Football community for my predictions and also the predictions of 15 media members. Steve Dace, Tony Gerdeman, Steve Hillwagon, Kevin Noon, The Wholesome One, Ty Hudson from Pig Trail Network, Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm. All sorts of folks that we're going to have. Tony Siracusa, Kevin McGuffey, and Jason Ray from Last Word on College Football. Clayton Safey from Rivals, Michigan. All sorts of predictions over there. Thought I saw some other possible questions or statements to be sorted through. Maybe not. I found it rather amusing. I will not mention the hosts' names, but it is a national show that I had on this morning, and they were looking at ACC teams' FPIs, and I don't think they really understood. And I have been a critic of the FPI. I don't think it's accurate. I would like to see the accuracy. I would like to see the FPI actually deliver to us metrics on how accurate it's been based on number one, let's say the original FPI number. So when the FPI first comes out in the offseason, how accurate it is in predicting those games in the fall. And then even at kickoff, how accurate it is in selecting the winner of the games. I would love to see that statistic. Is anybody tracking how accurate the FPI is? I don't think so. I don't even know if it can be tracked at this point because anything you look up is going to be changed. So they were looking at this, and they were looking at these games isolated in vacuums, meaning if a particular team, let's say NC State is a 40% chance of winning all its road games. So we're looking at NC State, and they're playing 6 games on the road, and they're a 40% chance based on the FPI probability of winning each one of those games. So if you look at each particular game and say, well, North Carolina State is predicted by the FPI to lose all of its non-conference games or all of its road games, and go 0-6 on the road. That's what the FPI is telling us if you just look at every game individually. But anybody who understands anything about math knows that if you have a 40% chance of winning 6 games, then you basically have a 2 to 3 chance of winning the collection of those games. The percentage is telling us that you should win 2 or 3 of those 6 games. Of course, you can't win 2.3 games. That's what the number would come to, something like 2.3 or 2.4. I think actually 2.4 would be the number, but you can't win a half a game. So the FPI is basically projecting, in this example, North Carolina State to win 2 or 3 of the 6 road games, not 0. I get how you can take them individually, but yeah. All right. Anything else in here before we shut things down? Anybody want anything? Oh, we were going to go through top 100 players, weren't we? Top 100 players. Let's run them down. How much time I've got? Okay. We're good. Let's run them down. Keep in mind one more time. I hope you got the notification. 7 o'clock Eastern tonight, Clemson, Georgia, live preview. So you can come in with your questions and your comments, and we will get to them. Top 100 players according to ESPN, and whomever voted on this, which would be their college football experts. Number 1, Spencer Radler, quarterback, Oklahoma. Number 2, Derek Stingley, cornerback, LSU. Number 3, Kayvon Thibodeau, defensive end, Oregon. Evan Neal at number 4, offensive tackle, Alabama. Sam Howell at number 5, quarterback, North Carolina. Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State at number 7. Or number 6. Number 7, Kyle Hamilton, who was banged up quite a bit last year at safety for Notre Dame. Number 8, Marvin Mims, wide receiver, Oklahoma. So that's a bit of a projection because he played really his first season last year and only caught 37 passes. Averaged fewer than 25 snaps per game. So at this point, that could be just a projection, a bit of a high projection that Marvin Mims is that good. At number 8. Number 9, Breece Hall, running back, Iowa State. Number 10, Will Anderson, linebacker, Alabama. Number 11, Brian Bresee, the defensive tackle from Clemson. So that's a high ranking for him as well. Yes, he came in as the number 1 player out of high school. He had a tremendous freshman season, but it wasn't a super dominant freshman season. To be the number 11 player in the country. Okay. Number 12, Keden Slovis, USC, quarterback. Could be a bit elevated there. Isaiah Spiller at 13 for Texas A&M. I'm good with that. Bijan Robinson at number 14, Texas. 15, DeMarvin Leal, Texas A&M defensive end. Number 16, Malik Willis, the Liberty quarterback at number 16. Number 17, Kenyon Green, Texas A&M. 18 is Matt Corral, Ole Miss. Obviously has to cut down on the interceptions with 14 last year. Number 19, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State. Number 20, Desmond Ritter, the Cincinnati quarterback. I see where most of these players were not ranked last year. Number 21, Bryce Young, Alabama. That's obviously a projection. He's done nothing. I have no issue with that because I ranked him as one of the 5 or 10 best quarterbacks in the country. I did quarterback, wide receiver, and running back rankings. Number 22, John Metchi, Alabama. Number 23, Christian Harris, Alabama. Alabama might be pretty good this year. Number 24, JT Daniels, Georgia. 25 is Miles Murphy, Clemson. 26 is Ahmad Gardner, the cornerback from Cincinnati. 27, Auburn running back Tank Bigsby. 28, DJ Uiagalelei, quarterback Clemson. 29, Brock Purdy, quarterback Iowa State. Number 30, Haskell Garrett, defensive lineman, Ohio State. 31 is Grayson McCall, the quarterback out of Coastal Carolina. 32, Tyler Linderbaum, offensive lineman, Iowa. He should probably be higher. 33, Dylan Gabriel, quarterback, UCF. Keyshawn Butte. 34, wide receiver, LSU. Number 35, LSU cornerback Eli Ricks. 36, De'Ara King, quarterback Miami. I could possibly throw this out to our Miami contributors to see how they like De'Ara King being what, about the 6th best quarterback. At 37, we've got Nick Benito, Oklahoma defensive end. 38, Josh Jobe, Alabama DB. 39, Justin Ross, wide receiver, Clemson. Kyer Elam, the Florida cornerback, is 40. Taiki Smith. This is a high ranking. I knew this was a good pickup for Georgia. 41st rated player in the country, Taiki Smith, Georgia. 42, Jalen Weidermeier, who we just talked about, tight end, Texas A&M. 43 is Malachi Moore, the DB from Alabama. Alabama's loaded. 44, Deuce Vaughn. Got to watch some Deuce Vaughn this year, folks. Kansas State. 45, Michael Penix, Indiana quarterback, coming off injury. Kyran Williams, 46, the Notre Dame running back. Another Notre Dame player at tight end, Michael Mayer at 47. 48 is Henry To'oTo'o, the linebacker, Alabama. 49, Thayer Munford, Ohio State. 50, Drake London, USC wide receiver. Man, I still have 50 to read off. All right. Charlie Kohler, Charles Cross. Now, here would I have to admit the first player that I don't know. I was not aware of Charles Cross, offensive tackle, Mississippi State. He's obviously an outstanding player, was not ranked last year. It's no wonder the Bulldogs had to hold off programs like Auburn, Florida State, and LSU to keep Cross in the Magnolia State. Last season, he played 720 snaps at left tackle, which was 630 snaps more than any other SEC freshman offensive lineman. He was pass blocking on nearly every play in Mike Leach's pass-happy offense, allowing 5 sacks and 13 pressures, according to ESPN Stats and Info. Charles Cross, there's a name for everyone to remember. 53, Aiden Hutchinson, Ty Freifogel, Mohammed Ibrahim, Minnesota, Drake Jackson, Tyler Davis, Xavier Thomas. We talked about him with Jason Priester the other day. Clemson, Georgia, live stream tonight, 7 o'clock. Will be a whole lot of fun. Brenton Cox, Kingsley Anagbare. Is that how you pronounce that? The South Carolina linebacker's name? 61, Tyreek Smith, Brandon Joseph, Jaleel Billingsley, Kennedy Brooks, Malik Cunningham. Isn't that a little high? Malik Cunningham, Louisville quarterback, 65. LeBrian Ray, Alabama. Darian Kennard, Treylon Burks, Kevin Harris, Jerion Ely, really good player, like him. George Karlaftis, who was the first 5-star, I believe, to sign at Purdue. Dante Stills, Travius Hodges Tomlinson, George Pickens, not playing. We'll see when he comes back, if he comes back or just prepares for the NFL draft. Tywan Mullen, Devin Lloyd. I'm surprised that they included Pickens. Smoke Monday, O'Shawn Mathis, Reggie Roberson, Tony Grimes, Jack Sanborn, Mike Rose, Zay Flowers. I didn't imagine it taking this long to read off 100 players. Will McDonald, DeMarvion Overshawn, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Davis, Grant Morgan. Nothing's necessarily jumping out. Cade Otten, Zamir White. He's going to get pressed for carries. Jason Kirkland, Trent McDuffie. Najee Sanders, Aeneas Smith. We just talked about him with Andrew. Jahan Dotson had some great catches last year. Tyler Goodson, Iowa, CJ Verdell, Johnny Johnson, couple Oregon players, Isaiah Thomas, and Osiris Torrance out of Louisiana, offensive lineman. So he's obviously highly regarded for a Louisiana offensive lineman to be in the top 100 players. Okay. That didn't turn out to be that fun of an exercise. HMan998, I've seen all sorts of lists that have Kevin Harris down the list for SEC running back. So it's one thing to rate the talent. It's another thing to rate the opportunity because of the lack of talent at that position for that team. So Kevin Harris is a tremendous player, but also consider that if he played on another team, he may not be playing much or as much. So I have no issue with most of these. I pointed out a few that I raised an eyebrow to, but otherwise, there's a lot of projection there. Bryce Young has to be a projection. There were probably about 10 guys that were total projections, and I'm good with that. I rated, again, Bryce Young to be one of the top 5 to 10 quarterbacks in the country. Has he proven anything at all to be that? No, he's not. Who do I think is the best player in America? Well, I will say this before I answer that question, is that, again, basketball and baseball are much easier to do this because everybody has the same skill set in baseball and basketball. In basketball, everybody, sure, there are different positions and there's different body types and so forth, but basically everybody shoots, dribbles, passes, rebounds. In baseball, everybody hits, everybody fields, everybody throws. But in football, how do you rate an offensive lineman against a quarterback? Who is the best? I think the most important player in the country is probably Sam Howell, because he's going to have to bring along, he's a great player at a school that's building a great program, but isn't there yet, and he's got to do it with new pieces on offense. So I'm going to say the most important player in the country is Sam Howell. Probably the best player at his particular position is probably I would go like Hamilton, Olave, Thibodeau, and Stingley are elite at their positions in terms of what they've already proven. All right, folks. We'll be back at 7 o'clock Eastern. Clemson, Georgia, live. Jump in here. Leave your comments, your questions. We'll mix it up with 3 to 4 media guests on each side. Georgia, Clemson. I'm fired up for this one live tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern.